Welcome to The Explainer. When a billionaire like Mark Cuban starts talking about the economy, you kind of have to listen. He's successfully navigated more than a few recessions, and he's pretty convinced another one is on the horizon. So today, we're going to break down his warning about the four industries he thinks are most at risk. So this is the big question, isn't it? Where are the biggest risks hiding right now? And this isn't just some high-level stuff for investors. Understanding these weak spots can actually tell us a whole lot about the health of the economy and maybe even about the security of our own jobs. And our guide through all this is Mark Cuban. And look, he's not just the guy from Shark Tank. This is someone who has built and sold companies through all kinds of economic booms and busts. So his perspective comes from some serious, real-world experience. He's got a knack for spotting trouble long before it makes the evening news. So he's basically pointing to four specific areas and saying, watch out. We're going to walk through each one. First, the media. Second, restaurants. Third, any business that depends on the government for money. And finally, companies that are totally dependent on other big platforms to even exist. Let's get into it.
First up is the media industry. And Cuban doesn't just think it's a little risky. Let me tell you, he does not mince words about it. Yeah, the worst industry in the history of industries. I mean, wow, that is a statement. And he's not just talking about your local newspaper or cable news here. He sees this deep structural problem that makes the entire sector, in his view, an absolute minefield.
So what's the core problem here? Well, it's basically a war for your eyeballs. It used to be that media companies just competed with each other for ad dollars. But now, they're competing with, well, everything. TikTok, Instagram influencers, YouTube, and the all-powerful algorithms that decide what you even see in the first place. Your attention is the currency, and it has never been more divided.
And if you think it's crowded now, Cuban warns that AI is about to pour gasoline on the whole fire. See, artificial intelligence makes it ridiculously cheap and easy to create content, which means a flood of new competition is coming, making it almost impossible for anyone to stand out from all that noise.
All right, let's switch gears to the second industry on Cuban's list, restaurants. It's one of those businesses everyone dreams of opening, but the financial reality, especially right now, is just brutal.
The whole issue really comes down to two little words: narrow margins. It means that after a restaurant pays for all the food, the rent, the staff, everything, the actual profit left over is tiny, like razor thin, and that makes them incredibly vulnerable to any little thing that goes wrong. And right now, it feels like a perfect storm. The cost of ingredients is way up, workers, as they should, are demanding better wages, and you've just got this general economic pressure squeezing them from all sides. There is simply zero wiggle room. And this number right here, this tells the whole story. We're talking about Chipotle, a huge, successful chain you'd expect to be growing like crazy. Well, in a recent quarter, their sales grew by just 0.3%. That's nothing. It's basically flat. For a company valued on its ability to grow, a number that low is a massive red flag that even their loyal customers are starting to pull back. Okay, so number 3 on the list is a bit of a curveball. It's not about what you sell, it's about who you sell to. And Cuban is super, super wary of any business that relies heavily on government funding. The risk is actually really simple, but it's also incredibly dangerous. You're just too dependent on one single customer. And when that customer is the government, you've basically handed over all control. Your entire future depends on budgets, politics, and policy changes that you have absolutely no say in. Which really brings us to this one terrifying question. What do you do when your one and only customer can just turn off the money faucet? Just like that. For these companies, a change in government spending isn't a setback. It can literally wipe them out overnight. All right, on to our last category, and this is a big one. It affects a ton of small businesses, creators, and entrepreneurs out there. It's what Cuban calls the platform trap, and it's all about building your business on someone else's property. Cuban doesn't pull any punches here, especially when it comes to Amazon. He says flat out, if a company has any level of dependency on Amazon, it's a negative. And this isn't about him hating Amazon. It's about the fundamental risk. When you build your business on a platform like Amazon or Etsy or the App Store, you don't make the rules. They do. So let's use Etsy as the perfect example of this trap. This chart is really interesting. On the left, you can see that in one quarter, the total amount of stuff sellers sold on Etsy went up by less than 1%. It barely moved. But now look at the bar on the right. Etsy's own revenue went up by almost 2.5%.
So, wait a minute. How does that work? Where did the extra money come from?
And here's your answer. The money came straight from the seller's pockets. Etsy's revenue from services, we're talking transaction fees, ad fees, all that stuff, shot up by nearly 13%. The platform made up for slowing sales by squeezing its own users for more cash. And what happens when you do that? Well, here's what happened. After they brought in a new fee, nearly 11% of their active sellers just left. They walked away. And that, right there, is a platform trap in a nutshell. The platform will always look out for itself first, even if it hurts the very people who make it valuable.
So when you step back and look at all four of these warnings, you start to see a pattern, right? It's not really about media or restaurants or any specific industry. It all comes down to one thing: dependency. The real risk, the thing that can absolutely kill a business in a downturn, is not having control over your own customers and your own costs.
And that's really the big idea to walk away with. It's one thing to spot these risks in other businesses, but the real question is, where are these hidden dependencies lurking in our own world? In our jobs, our side hustles, our investments? Because figuring that out now is how you get ready for whatever's coming next.